But if you will prepare your hearts, open up your ears, and be willing to receive what thus said the Lord from my own son, Elder Demetrius Ramon Jones. Hear ye him.
Amen. Amen.
Let's just open up with a word of prayer before we get started here. Father, in the name of your Son, Jesus, who died to redeem us back unto you, unto yourself, God. The biggest act of humility and selflessness that we've ever witnessed or seen. We give you glory, God. We give you honor, oh God. We magnify your name, Father. For you are worthy. We thank you, Father, for this family and friends occasion, oh God. Knowing that we are part of your family. So we just invite you in, and your presence is here even now. We just welcome you even more, God. We just yield and submit our will to your will, Father. So that you may be glorified.
Yes, God.
God, we worship you.
Yes.
We honor you. We thank you for this opportunity that you've given us, oh God, to say hallelujah to your name, oh God, to glorify your name, to lift you up, oh God. We bless you, God. Father, as I speak your word that you placed into my heart, help me, Father, to humble myself in your presence, oh God, so that the people will hear you, Lord Jesus, and not me, that you would be lifted up and magnified. Open up the ears of the people, Father, so that they can hear your word, oh God. And their hearts be open to receive your word on today. So we thank you, Father. We glorify you and we magnify you. We thank you that your loving kindness is better than life. Hallelujah. So we honor you now. In the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen. Amen. Hallelujah. I just thank God for this opportunity and the invitation just to come down here home once again from Olathe, Kansas, where we reside now, which is just outside of Kansas City, Missouri. Just to come back, to come home. You know, where I went to high school at, here in Malvern. Graduated, went off into the Navy, and went on in life. The place where I got my foundation, Calvary Church of God in Christ, under the leadership of John W. Harrison, who's going on to be with the Lord. A disciplined man, a praying man, a man of integrity. I can say that because I've seen that, I've witnessed that in him. Who he loved on me as a 15-year-old kid. But more importantly, he showed me how to walk and how to be a man of God. How to carry yourself. So that you have a good name that goes about you. So that your name is intended. He showed me a lot of those things. But I thank God for my parents, of course. They've instilled so much into me. Pastor of this church, Pastor Willie Jones. First Lady Georgia Jones. And everything that I do in the Lord, from this moment, from every moment that I've had, from everything that I've done in the Lord, everything I will do in the Lord, she will get credit. Because, like earlier, she planted the seed. She brought me into that relationship with the Lord, and I honor her for that. I thank her for that. The greatest gift that she could ever give me was introducing me to the Lord Jesus Christ. Nothing greater than that. honor you, Mom. I thank you. I thank God for all my family that's here today represented. Just my heart's just bubbling up. I thank all of you for coming out and just supporting this family and friends today, all the ministers. I give all of you guys honor for doing the work. That's not an easy work. That sometimes can be a difficult work, but it's the most rewarding thing you'll ever do when you walk with integrity before the Lord. And I don't want to be up here very long today. I've got it all set out here. My cousin, who I never met before, already preached half of it. Now I understand why the Lord didn't allow me to use Job. When I wanted to use Job and I kept wrestling with it, it's like, no. Because he already had that word coming through. He already had it coming through. But I give honor, God honor for that. Give honor as well to my wife who stands by me, prays for me. Thank you for being there for me. And I just thank God for all of you. I love all of you. My brother who's here, Daryl, praying for you. Love you, brother. You know I do. And then even my siblings in their absence, I give them honor as well. We're going to get right into this, and I'm not going to belabor this. Not going to be very long. Very cognizant of the time, but quite simply what the Lord placed on my heart for us today, being that this is a family affair that we're here. Let it go and move on. Quite simple. Let it go and move on. What is meant by letting it go? We hear that all the time in society. You know, hey, it's not that big a deal. Just let it go. Get out of your feelings. I've heard that before. Get out of your feelings. Just let it go. These are just some of the things that people say when they want us to move on. Just let it go. The Lord doesn't want us to be holding on to past hurts and offenses that keep us in a place of bitterness, anger, unforgiveness, and envy. Come on, this is for the family.
Come on, man.
The Lord doesn't want us to be in this place.
All right now.
Man.
I simply have 3 examples of people who couldn't let it go that I want to share with you today. 3 examples of people. The first one, remember Cain. Remember Cain. Genesis chapter 4. Let's turn there quickly. Genesis chapter 4. Let's look at Cain and Abel. First book of the Bible. Very easy to find. Shouldn't take us long to find this one. Genesis chapter 4. And it reads, starting with with verse number 1. And Adam knew Eve, his wife, and she conceived and bare Cain, and said, I have gotten a man from the Lord. And she again bare his brother Abel. And Abel was a keeper of sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. Notice the difference in Abel and in Cain. Abel was a keeper of the sheep. Does that remind you of anybody? Anybody else who was a keeper of the sheep? Anybody else who watched over God's sheep, kept them together? Remember King David? Before he was King David, he was a keeper of the sheep.
All right.
Abel spent much time with the Lord in his work. Fellowship, singing unto the Lord, developing that relationship, that intimacy that is so required, especially when you're over God's people. He was doing his work, but more important than his work, he was building that relationship, that closeness, that intimacy with God. Abel was building that up. Abel was keeping God first in his heart. He was keeping him first. However, we look and we see his brother Cain.
Right.
Cain was like so many people today. See, Cain trusted in himself. Cain trusted in his own ability. Cain trusted in his job for everything. Cain was a tiller of the ground. Who else was a tiller of the ground? We don't have to look far to know that after the fall, Adam was a tiller of the ground. Come on.
Yeah.
Cain trusted in his occupation instead of in his God. Come on. How many of us have fell into this same trap, family?
All right.
How many of us have trusted in our own ability, in our own strength, in our own occupation,
All right now.
versus trusting in our God?
Yeah.
We'll dive into that a little bit. Let's go back to verse 3. And in process of time, it came to pass that Cain brought of the fruit of the ground an offering unto the Lord. And Abel, he also brought of the firstlings of his flock and of the fat thereof. And the Lord had respect unto Abel and to his offering. But unto Cain and to his offering he had not respect.
Right.
And Cain was very wroth, and his countenance fell. And the Lord said unto Cain, Why art thou wroth? And why is thy countenance fallen? If thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted? And if thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door. In verse 5, it's amazing how the condition of our heart is what moves God. The condition of our heart. See, Cain thought that he could offer God any kind of offer out of his own hands.
Yeah.
He just give him anything. Much like some people come to church and they just think that they can just give God whatever change they got in their pocket
Right.
instead of the tithe that he requires.
Help us.
See, and think that it would be acceptable to God. That's pride. Thinking that God is pleased and that he's going to bless us, giving him any old thing. Then we want to get jealous and we want to get mad when we see others doing it the right way, the way that God said to do it, like Abel. We want to be mad at them. We want to be jealous at them because they're living a life of blessing. Come on, family. This is going to all tie together. Cain set in his heart to do it his way instead of God's way.
All right.
Even after God told him all he needed to do for his offering to be accepted. God showed so much grace. So why is your countenance falling? Why are you mean-mugging? Basically.
Right.
I've told you what you got to do. Why are you mad at your brother so much that you want to kill him? Your offering can be accepted too. What you give unto me can be accepted too. If you do it the way that I tell you to do it.
Yes, sir.
No one else is to blame for the things that we harbor in our heart.
All right.
No one else.
All right.
See, NME, no more excuses.
All right.
No more excuses, family. We cannot blame past hurts. We cannot blame arguments from 5, 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. We're still mad and upset with each other over things. No more, family. No more excuses. We have to let it go and move on.
That's right.
We have to let it go and move on. Past arguments with family, with friends, past hurts from past relationships. Let it go and move on. Past hurts over not getting a promotion at work. Oh Lord, let it go. Let it go and move on. The second example of a person who couldn't let it go, my daughter's favorite book in the Bible, the book of Jonah. The book of Jonah. Now we should all know the story of Jonah. We should have learned about this in Sunday school. You know, this is one of the most popular stories in the Bible. What I really want to look at is just one thing in the story of Jonah. And that's in Jonah chapter 3, starting with verse 10. Jonah chapter 3, starting with verse 10. And it reads, "And God saw their works, that they turned from their evil way, and God repented of the evil that he had said that he would do unto them. And he did it not." Chapter 4. "But it displeased Jonah exceedingly, and he was very angry." The prophet of God. Very angry. It displeased him. Isn't it amazing how the prophet of God gets displeased and gets so upset, gets so mad, gets so angry over the people repenting before God? The prophet of God. Why was Jonah so upset? Why was he so exceedingly angry at the people repenting before God? We see that Jonah was more interested in how he looked before man than God's mercy on the people. Jonah, he was more interested in how he looked before man than God's mercy on the people. He was more interested in looking like some great big prophet in the people's eyes. Every time he speaks, it comes to pass, even at the expense of people dying.
All right, all right.
This is how much pride is in Jonah. Such a lack of love that was in Jonah, this prophet of God. Take this back to yourself and think about, have you ever seen a minister who was so caught up in themselves, so caught up in bitterness, so caught up in anger, but not a holy anger, not a holy righteousness, but just mad at the people of God? Have you ever noticed that in a minister before? I've seen that before. Not dealing with the love that God requires, but almost hating the people. This is the example that Jonah was showing. See, sometimes some pastors have to be careful with that. They have to be very careful with that. Some pastors can get intimidated or get jealous of others that God raises up. We have to watch that. We have to be very, very careful of that.
All right.
See, over time, they can allow compromise, jealousy, sin, and carnality to dull the hearing of the Lord. They can allow it to dull them. Just like Jonah. He didn't want to hear what God had to say. He wanted to run. He wanted to flee. We have to be careful with that. As ministers of God, we have to encourage one another in ministry. We're not in ministry to compete.
That's right. That's right.
We're not in ministry to covet one another. Cover this pastor's members. Cover this church's, the way they do their programs. We're going to do it exactly the same way. We're not in competition with one another.
That's right. That's right. Amen.
We're not to compete. We're not to covet. We are to encourage one another. We are to sow into other ministries. One another's ministry. To build up someone else's ministry that they're working in. Our heart attitude has to be right so God can release things into your ministry. We have to sow into one another's ministry. We have to encourage other pastors, other leaders, other ministers. We have to be obedient to what God is telling us to do with what He has given us stewardship over. We have to let it go We have to move on.
All right.
All the unforgiveness, all the bitterness.
Yes, yes.
I've seen ministers being upset, angry, mad with one another. Let it go.
Yes.
Let it go. Move on. Forgive and move on. Forgive those who have left the ministry. Forgive them and move on. Have to let it go. And my third example today, final example I want to look at, is coming out of the book of Acts, chapter 9. Book of Acts, chapter 9. We're going to look at the life of a man called Saul. Saul. His name was later changed to Paul. The book of Acts, chapter 9, verse 1, going through to verse 6. And Saul, yet breathing out threatenings and slaughter against the disciples of the Lord, went unto the high priest and desired of him letters to Damascus, to the synagogues, that if he found any of this way, whether they were men or women, he might bring them bound unto Jerusalem. And as he journeyed, he came near Damascus, and suddenly there shined round about him a light from heaven. And he fell to the earth, and heard a voice saying unto him, Saul, Saul, why persecutest thou me? And he said, Who art thou, Lord? And the Lord said, I am Jesus whom thou persecutest. It is hard for thee to kick against the pricks. And he, trembling and astonished, said, Lord, what wilt thou have me to do? Lord, what wilt thou have me to do? Arise and go into the city, and it shall be told thee what thou must do. The life of Saul, whose name was changed to Paul, a man who went on to become the greatest apostle in the history of the body of Christ, not named John the Revelator. He was a persecutor of Christ. He didn't care. He persecuted men. He persecuted women, children. He did not care. He was very zealous about the things that he had to do and what he believed in. He had a passion, an intense passion about his convictions. This is Saul. This is an unbeliever. He stood by what he believed in, whether he was saved or unsaved. This was a man of integrity. And we say that about an unsaved person. He was a man of integrity because you knew where you stood with Saul. You knew exactly where you stood with him. As ministers of the gospel, can we say we have conviction like the Apostle Paul? That's a question for us as the ministers. Can we say that we have that conviction? Can the world say, I know exactly where you stand on that issue. I know that you're not wavering. When people come into the church, can they say, yes, he stands in that. Yes, he does not stand for that. Can they say that because of the conviction on your life? Or when they say, I don't know what my minister believes in. I don't know if he believes in gay marriage. I have no idea. I don't know his convictions. Can we say that? Paul stood by what he believed in. You see it in all of his writings. And when you're reading the writings of Paul, one of the things that you'll notice from his early writings to his later writings, a greater and greater level of humility. It's all throughout his writings. He humbled himself. How did he do that? He learned to let it go. Paul, he learned how to let it go. Holding on. All the persecution, all the things from the past that were holding him, entrapping him. He learned how to let them all go. The thorn in his side, that kept him before God, seeking God. It kept him humble. It kept him with humility. Jesus wore a crown of thorns, but it seems like today we don't want any uncomfortableness. any kind of trials.
All right. All right.
When Jesus wore his crown of thorns, we are at ease in Zion. We love the blessing, hate the testing.
All right.
Love the blessing,
Yeah.
hate the testing.
All right.
We're too at ease in Zion. Paul was tested, and he laid it all down at the feet of Jesus. He laid it all down. He let go of the past. He let go of how he used to persecute, how he used to murder people with such zeal, such fervor. He let it all go. He nailed his past to the cross of Jesus. And then he moved on to life everlasting. Ministers, family, we have to let it go. And we have to move on.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
We have to let go of all the past hurts, all the past pain, all the wrongdoings that people have done to us, whether it's just or unjust. We have to let it go. All the church hurt.
All right now.
Come on.
All church hurt.
Yeah.
All condemnation. We gotta let go and move on.
Yeah.
All of our past failures in life, we gotta let it go.
Yes, sir.
We gotta move on.
Yes.
All our disagreements, we gotta let it go.
That's right.
We gotta move on. The only way that God is going to move us to where he desires for us to move is to let go of all the trash, all the junk that's inside of us,
All right.
all the unforgiveness, all the bitterness, all the past hurt. Let it go and move on. My challenge to us as a family, if we're holding things, if we're harboring things in our heart, and only you and God know, that we have not let go of, make today the day that we let it go. No matter how big, no matter how small, no matter who offended you, no matter who hurt you, let it go and move on. Let it go and move on. Amen. Amen. So if we're ready to take the step of letting go, let's show it as an act of our faith. Now is the time, now is the moment for us to let it go and move on. We'll pray for you. As a family, as an individual, we have to let it go. We have to move on. Amen.
That word. That means no one is holding on to no grudges or anything. Don't leave here today and trying to wait till tonight. I believe the water is already troubled. You can leave that, whatever that is, you can leave it here. You don't have to take that with you. You know, people will make you mess up this day and time we're living in because they want to hold you hostage over something that happened 15 years ago. Today, God said, let it go. If you're willing to let it go, God said, I'll deal with them. The problem is you are carrying them. You are giving them energy, and they going on, and you said, now you're weakened because you're still carrying it. The man of God just spoke today. God said, just let it go. Release it. Why are you still holding it?
Yes, sir.
So we all good? Everybody good? Well, come on, let's give God a hand praise here. Come on, open up your mouth and thank God for being released from craziness. Amen.